Nearly a century ago, God stirred the hearts of ordinary people with an extraordinary vision, to see young people encounter Him and grow into servant leaders. That bold vision became the foundation for a movement of student and camp ministries across Canada that would be known as InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. And for 70 years, Pioneer Pacific Camp has been a part of carrying out that vision. Here, on the shores of Thetis Island, young people have learned to serve, to lead, and to see God's hand in the world around them. From the first camp in 1955 to today's gatherings on the same shores, this story continues. This is the story of Pioneer Pacific Camp. In 1928, Howard Guinness left his medical studies in England to reach students in Canada with the gospel. Recognizing the unique opportunities of the Canadian context, he and other leaders expanded their ministry beyond universities by forming camps across the nation where young people could encounter God in the beauty of creation and be trained in leadership. By the early 1950s, Adam and Marge Hunter, longtime residents of Thetis Island, donated 67 acres of shoreline property to InterVarsity Christian Fellowship.
2 bays, one bay was for the boats, 1 bay was for the swimming. Dining hall right on the point looking out between the 2 bays. What a sight. The location is just so pristine. And so the people who had the foresight to come and look at it, Ken Smith, Fred Lindsay, Kathy Nickel, all these folks came because Adam Hunter, who had the property, in fact, what is now in front of the dining hall was his log dump. He used to dump his logs on the water here. He knew that InterVarsity was looking for a site. He donated. I think they exchanged a $1 bill. And I think Ken Smith was the one who accepted the $1 bill. Or gave the $1 bill, I should say.
Volunteers from InterVarsity campus groups and local churches began arriving by boat, clearing forests, digging trenches, and building cabins with little more than hammers. They were true pioneers.
And so they were involved in putting up these huge big logs that formed the rafters and the roof of the big building. I think the first year they just had a tent, big tent that they used as their dining hall and all.
When Pioneer Pacific Camp officially opened in 1955, 80 campers slept under canvas, ate by lantern light, and sang hymns beside the sea. There was no electricity, no ferry to the camp, but there was a deep trust that God would be faithful to what He began at Pioneer Pacific.
And as I was heading out to UBC, some older Christians said to me, "I think you might like Pioneer Camp." So I went, and I loved it. Just being out of doors all the time and kind of running down Senior Hill, going to teach swimming or something like that. All of that was still there. But shall I say, the washrooms were a bit more on the primitive side, and the shower house was absolutely dreadful.
So I missed 2 summers from the 70s through till, we're into 25. Wow, what happened to the time? I remember fixing toilets at night. I could do toilets in the dark at night, fixing them, and then I had to explain to the kids, okay, push down the handle, count to 5.
And it was all done by hand. We didn't have machines. The wharf dock facility was a very primitive kind of thing. Went dry at really low tide. In those days, there wasn't a ferry to Thetis Island. So Adam had a boat, and he would tow a barge, and they would bring people over.
There was an older gentleman who had a truck. They called him Dad Holly. And he would go to the ferry, put as many campers as he could squish onto that truck. And the kids would come down the camp road swinging and swaying, and we'd be at the top of the road, welcoming them and shouting at the top of our lungs and singing camp songs and all the rest of it. That's how they got to Pioneer. Camp would begin.
As the years unfolded, the humble camp on Thetis Island continued to grow. Early additions included a wharf and boathouse as well as a pond. Camp facilities would later expand with new wash houses and accommodations, and most recently, a new dining hall, office, and leadership center. God's provision and faithfulness was mediated through the collective effort and generosity of donors and volunteers. But the ultimate growth that occurred at Pioneer was a growth of faith among young people, a faith which took root in everyday moments. Camp became a place where body, soul, and spirit would be nurtured and integrated.
Well, I would spend every July here. I spent my entire summer at camp. I would be here for July for boys camp because my dad was directing boys camp. And then I would be here for girls camp. I felt very comfortable. This camp truly feels like home to me. I think the premise for camp was Kathy's vision to have a place where young Christian adults could learn to love others. And how do you, as a Christian adult, explain your faith to someone who is young? And how do you care for them, helping them get to bed, helping them when they're homesick, leading a Bible study? What does that mean to lead a Bible study? So
It's just a different approach. Our approach as a camp is we provide mentors, really, in the form of counselors, and understand that these are people who love Jesus.
And I think we could say that faith at Pioneer Camp was more caught as well as taught.
whether you are washing dishes, whether you are in a skit being hilarious and goofy, or whether you are worshiping in song, or whether you're teaching someone how to paddle a canoe. How are you expressing Jesus?
Because faith is both words and action, so they needed that personal interaction to see our love in action.
Waking up with your friends and having a job to do that felt meaningful, but also fun, and you knew you were going to be with wonderful people all day, and you were going to be in a beautiful place, and you knew that you were taking part in this big kind of collective effort to do something meaningful in the lives of kids and something meaningful for God. And it was just kind of living that in the day-to-day through meals and after dinner and out on the water. It was just kind of that experience for the most part that brings me so much joy.
Behind all the work and play that took place at Pioneer, the heartbeat of camp was always to raise up servant leaders who would go out and radiate God's love.
And it's so cool to see kids that came as beginners coming back as the counselors, coming back as the leaders. And that's happened over and over again. And that's what keeps you coming back.
Aside from my family and upbringing, I think camp would be the secondary main thing that has grown and developed my faith. I personally have experienced the value of camp, and I've also now seen it in my own kids, the value that camp ministry has on their personal growth and spiritual growth. And then I've also had now years and years of relationship with staff that have also, and campers, have gone through here, that camp being a place where you can explore and grow in your own faith journey.
I met a woman at a conference when she saw my Pioneer Pacific sweatshirt, and she asked, "Oh, do you work at Pioneer?" She was about 80 years old, and she said to me, "I gave my heart to Jesus under one of the J cabins back when I was 10 years old." And we began to talk a bit, and the thing that struck me about our conversation was that she recounted this moment where she gave her heart to God as if it happened yesterday. And I think that, if you talk about legacy, it's that this place I came and I encountered God, and it really changed my life for the rest of my life.
Decade by decade, God kept writing his story on this island. Families returned and friendships deepened. At the same time, the camp kept expanding their program offerings to welcome new campers and respond to the unique needs of the time. The expressions of camp have changed over the years, from tents and kerosene lamps to playing on the whibbit and eating bibimbap, but the heartbeat remains unchanged. Today, new generations are arriving and experiencing the joy of camp for the first time.
I feel like God has brought peace and love to my life during these few weeks, where he's brought such an amazing community for me, where we all got to live, laugh, and play.
I'd say God has brought me here for a reason, and that's to connect with other young people who have a strong faith, and it will end up helping me have a stronger faith.
For a camper becoming one of the staff members, it's just such an important transition.
God has really shown himself in just how beautiful this place can be. It can bring out different parts of yourself that you didn't even know was there, but it's always so incredible to get to see how he's shining through the small things and the big things, and you really get a lot of that at camp.
In 2022, through the connections and initiative of Mim Wicket and 10th Church, Pioneer hosted a camp for Afghan newcomers to Canada.
Through Mim Wicket, she invited us to come in to help in a directing role because she met all these folks, and she said, these people, they want to have an experience of Canada, but they also are alone. And she said they need camp because camp is this place of connection.
So many people come from trial and tragedy, and to come to a place that's not only safe, but the whole intention of being there is joy. It's just it blows you away. So for me, who's kayaked 1,000 times, to introduce someone their first time on the water in a boat, you just sort of see it through their eyes, and their excitement becomes my excitement. And they'll say things like, "This has changed my life." I'm like, "What do you mean?" As a woman, for example, I've never been allowed to do something I want to do, especially something risky like this. Or another young woman said, the last time I was in water, it was a dangerous river crossing to get to Canada, and I'm really scared. But then swimming all week, I feel happy again. And so it's the simplest thing at camp actually sort of rewrites people's traumatic stories and just fills them with joy and hope to go ahead in their new life here. Something so simple could have such an impact.
And I just remember hearing about this one family where there was a mother and her daughter, and the daughter, ever since they left Afghanistan, she could not sleep unless she was touching her mother's hair and holding onto her mother's hair, because that's what made her feel safe. But then we heard that this girl has been having so much fun at this camp and has just felt so free that she was able to sleep without holding onto her mother's hair that week. And it's small, but it's significant. If it's someone who is culturally different from you, sometimes you have to work that much harder to understand or to express love in a way that is meaningful to them. Even if it is just sitting at the table with someone and having a conversation, those things are meaningful. It means something to people. Yeah, my hope is that camp can be a place that continues to offer that, where people could just be free and welcome to bring who they are.
For 70 years, one thing has never changed: God's faithfulness. Through every season, God provided for the camp and revealed himself to campers and staff alike.
I think that's one of the values of having this long thread that goes back to, the very beginnings of InterVarsity in Canada, because it reminds us that God shows up regardless of the time, regardless of your generation, regardless of what your issues are. God always shows up for those young people who arrive, who want to grow in their gifts and are curious about Jesus.
70 years, it only has happened because of God's sustaining. And this is really the camp story. God would always provide what was needed.
The amount of volunteers was overwhelming. Always like, God, where are they going to come from? And he'd send them from everywhere. We depended on him.
You realize how many people, there's thousands and thousands of people who have encountered God at camp.
To see God's faithfulness down through the years in the lives of these people who I knew when they were racing around Pioneer in their cut-off jeans, and that kind of thing, and their wet old bathing suits. So God's faithfulness to people, and God is still meeting people in the creative activities and in the wonderful fun that we have together.
When I hear the stories of people from the past, I'm thankful that there's been something that has continued for all these years, and that's people encountered God through Pioneer, and I can see that continuing today. So grateful that this is the legacy of Pioneer Pacific. Grateful that that's the story that I've been invited into, and it's my hope and prayer that Pioneer will continue to be this place of encounter.
We just have to be faithful to this gift that has been given, and that it's the Lord's place. It's not owned by any of us. This is God's place. And so being good stewards to continue the mission that has been set forth in the last 70 years.
Pioneer Pacific is more than a camp. It's a living testimony to God's goodness. 70 years of changed lives. 70 years of God's faithfulness. And the story isn't over. The adventure continues.
More than ever, I feel our broken world needs everything that Pioneer Camp has. And yes, I'm older now, and I realize that there will be changes and new challenges for the next generation. But the loving, lively Christian community where we extended God's grace and welcome to a wide variety of people that came over the years. This must continue. And Pioneer Camp, where there was just such wonderful creative fun and just hilarious laughter and countless adventures, this must continue. And Pioneer Camp, where winsome leaders served God and taught and demonstrated Christian values that would last whole life long. I just feel so deeply this must continue. So what is my word of encouragement? Carry on to the next generation of young people. Carry on. Our broken world needs all that Pioneer Camp has to offer.